Hello, everybody. Welcome to our webinar about the future of AI shopping and our newest release in our e-commerce product. We will give people another few seconds to join, but then we'll kick off in about a minute or so. If you guys already want to drop a note, maybe in the chat about like where you're from, what your experience is, then we will kick off very, very shortly. But I'm very excited for this one. I think it's going to be a very, very good one over the next hour or so. I'm joined today by our CMO and CPO, Malte Landwehr, as well as our head of product, Niklas. We'll give them a proper introduction in a little bit. But I would suggest, given that we have quite a few people that have joined already, that we get started. So once again, welcome everybody. Very, very good to have so many people here. Clearly, obviously shows that this is an incredibly big topic, an incredibly hot topic right now that we're talking about. And it's obviously all about how products show up across AI platforms and ultimately what you as a brand or as an agency can do for your brands to get them more exposure and to ultimately help them winning in AI search. Today's agenda, we'll focus, we'll do like a little bit of like an introduction about where we are right now and why the topic is so important. Malte will then take over and talk a little bit about the status quo of ChatGPT shopping, where we're at, based on some very good research that the guys have done. And then Niklas will take over the stage and will actually walk through the new product release that we have been working very, very hard on over the last couple of weeks. And then we will finish it with a Q&A section where we can go into more details. As kind of like quick house rules, feel free to kind of like use the chat, use also the Q&A or the questions feature on the side to ask your questions. We will be taking questions at the end, but we'll already like start collecting questions throughout the webinar, and you can also upvote other people's questions on the side if you think that they're especially applicable and also something that you would like to know. We are also recording the webinar. You will have access to a recorded version of the webinar after this, and you will also get a chance to speak to the Peec team in a direct one-on-one, and we'll kind of like send a link to a direct consultation right after the product presentation. So let's jump right in with a bit of an introduction to the topic. Obviously, we all know that LLMs now as a channel are more important than ever, and that shoppers are moving product discovery and buying into AI, and that this has a massive impact on e-commerce. So if we look at the very top of the funnel, nearly half of all shoppers already use AI to get inspired, to discover product and to kind of like see what products they would want to buy. And then if we move to the middle of the funnel, nearly 2/3 of all consumers already use AI for comparing options, brands, models, prices, and reviews. And consistently, we hear that trust in LLMs is incredibly high, right? So they often even rank above, kind of like traditional search, but even from like friends and family and colleagues, the trust in LLMs is out there. And so it's seen as a highly authoritative source. And this confidence is also driving purchase decisions and therefore transactions. And so in the new area of search, it's not just enough anymore to give a simple blue link, but consumers want conversational guidance that is highly tailored towards their needs and that steers them to a very personalized buying decision and experience. And so what we at Peec have done over the last year and a half is, we own or like we are already the European market leader to help brands understand this channel much more. So we raised nearly 30 million in funding. We crossed over 10 million ARR in only a year and a half, have a huge engineering team that's working incredibly hard to push the company and push the product forward. And for e-commerce specifically, we're already working with some of the largest brands out there. And next to a large engineering team, one of the focus areas for us, and an area that's incredibly important, is our research. And so we have a dedicated GEO research team where the research that they do fundamentally drives the company, the product, and the industry forward. This goes from establishing benchmarks within AI search to seeing how models actually break down queries, how fan out queries, for example, work, but also what content pieces are actually being picked up and how language influences these models. And so one of the best people to talk about this agentic shopping experience and the current status quo of ChatGPT shopping is Malte, who is our CMO and CPO, has spent all of his life in SEO and now GEO, formerly at Search Metrics and also Idealo. And I'll be handing over to him now to talk you through the current status quo of ChatGPT shopping a little bit. Over to you, Malte.
Thank you, Leon. Let's dive right in and get started. We're talking about the status quo of ChatGPT shopping, as you already heard. Right now, shopping in ChatGPT is most of the time this. You get a table of products, product comparison table, and I want to highlight a couple of things. We see products, we see prices, we see merchants or an indication that there are multiple merchants, we have a price range, and we have product attributes and star ratings. And we keep this in mind because later in the talk, we will come back to some of these. And of course, I can click on any of them, and then I get this detailed view of a product where I also see star ratings now as an aggregation of user ratings. And I see concrete merchants with prices and sometimes information on delivery time and if a product is on or in stock. And I don't always have this product comparison table. Sometimes I also have this product slider where I can now swipe to the right, see more products, and I see different kinds of data. Most important, there are no product attributes listed and the products are not rated based on any product attributes, but it's very similar experience. And in the vast majority of cases, it's one of these two layouts. Now, let's first look at different countries and how they compare in this. So I found that for some categories like skincare products, where I basically asked ChatGPT repeatedly, what skincare product should I buy? Where should I buy them? In the vast majority of countries, the same set of brands is recommended. So this seems to be a pretty global topic that is kind of uniform. But there are also topics like, hey, I'm invited to a wedding. What kind of outfit should I buy? Or where should I buy my outfit as a wedding guest? Where we can see that in every country, basically different brands are being recommended. Of course, there are multi-country brands like ASOS, but overall, we can see a lot of difference here. So clearly, there are also e-commerce topics where ChatGPT is super, super localized. And then if we dive a little bit deeper into like, what outfit should I buy for a wedding? We can also see that based on the country, very, very different products are actually being recommended. So here in Austria, more traditional dresses, in Sweden, more elegant ones, in Spain, more like colorful dresses. And then in the US, I would say something like the opposite of what's been suggested in Austria. But how does ChatGPT know this? How can it match the culture, the norms of each country? Well, it's actually explained by the data source, and it's as boring as this can get, because what we see here in ChatGPT shopping is just scraped data from Google Shopping, very important, from the organic Google Shopping, and scraped against Google's will. So this is not some kind of data sharing. ChatGPT is using a third-party provider, just like SEO tools are doing it, to scrape Google results in real time or almost real time. How do we know this? We did research together with Tom Wells, an independent AI researcher. And in the data that is streamed between the ChatGPT server and your browser, there is a little bit of text. And this is actually base64 encoded, so you can very, very easily encode it. And then you will see that it's some attributes with values. And there's some stuff in there like image doc ID, headline offer doc ID, GPC ID, catalog ID. Those of you who work with Google Merchant Center and the Google Shopping feed might already be familiar with these attributes. Then there is stuff in there like GL, HL, UULE. Those of you who have ever done some kind of Google scraping or have tried to manipulate the Google URL to show you data from a specific country or specific region, might be familiar with these parameters. And then there's a query in there. And if we stick all of these together, we can actually reconstruct the exact Google Shopping URL that was used to gather the data. And what's happening here is the following. When I enter a prompt that has shopping intent, there are these regular fan-out queries that are being generated. So these terms that ChatGPT is using to pull additional context before giving an answer. We have coined them here search fan-outs, and they are also shopping fan-outs. And these are distinct and separate, and they go to separate services. All of that in the end is combined, and then I see the product carousel or the product table. Now, very, very important, two pieces of information. One is the top 40 products in Google Shopping organic are always explaining everything we see in ChatGPT. It has all the products, prices, availability, aggregated user ratings, etc., etc. And this is not true, for example, for Bing Shopping. Yeah? This is only true for Google Shopping. So another proof point that it's really Google Shopping that is being used. Second important piece of information, some form of re-ranking is happening. So meaning that the product that is in position 1 in Google Shopping is not necessarily position 1 in ChatGPT Shopping. Sometimes products are skipped, sometimes the order is rearranged. So there is some form of re-ranking happening, probably based on the information that ChatGPT also gets from the regular fan-out queries and the content it consumes via the regular fan-out queries. So 3 things to remember. ChatGPT Shopping is based on Google Shopping. ChatGPT Shopping does some form of re-ranking. And there are these separate shopping fan-out queries that are separate and distinct from the regular fan-out queries. So how do we optimize based on what we know so far? The first thing to remind ourselves of is that depending on the intent, ChatGPT is using very different sources. So if we have commercial top of funnel intent, we will very, very often encounter listicles and category pages in what ChatGPT is using for the grounding. If we look at transactional bottom of funnel prompts, it's product pages and again, category pages. So these are the main content types we should consider when we want to optimize our appearance in ChatGPT Shopping. And then we remember that we have this product comparison table with product attributes. And we can see here star ratings from 3 to 5. And this is not a coincidence. You will usually see at least 3 stars. Like it's in the very vast majority of cases, you have at least 3 stars here. So basically a product that would be badly rated in comfort, for example, would very likely just not be shown in this table. And since we know these product attributes, if we are a brand that is making sneakers, and if we see the maybe comfort and durability again and again across prompts, across chats, then we should make very sure that on our product details pages, in our product feed, and in all the data we publish about our sneakers, we mention their comfort and their durability, ideally proved with a third-party source. This is probably very, very beneficial for our appearance in ChatGPT. Now, if I'm a multi-brand merchant and I don't care what brand gets recommended, I probably still want to talk about these attributes to have a higher chance to be a source, be seen as valuable by ChatGPT, for example, by just adding scoring for these on my product details pages, maybe having a category filter for this, maybe writing about it in my category texts, maybe having a top 10 list of the 10 most comfortable sneakers, etc., whatever fits the information and user experience that I want to have on my website. The second thing we should look at are the fan-out queries. Here's an example with one very, very long and detailed prompts. Then we see one fan-out query, 2 shopping fan-out queries. Important note, usually we see more regular fan-out queries than shopping fan-out queries. So this is a bit of a counterexample to that, but there are some interesting things going on here, which is why I picked this example. So the boring insight is many of the words used in the fan-out queries are of course taken from my prompt. However, there are also terms added. And these are the very interesting terms, because if I have a product details page about a cozy, heavyweight, oversized hoodie, I should consider, can I add the terms structured and premium cotton to this product details page? Very important. I should review that this product is actually structured by structured material and that it's made from premium cotton. I should not lie and make stuff up, but if these terms are true for my product, I should mention that on my product details page. I should mention that in the product feed. Especially useful if you're running it over a lot of chats. Now, we did a little research at Peec AI about, in general, terms added to fanout terms, added to fanout queries, and you can find that in our blog. The relevant ones for shopping, I think, are reviews, 2026 top comparison. So these are the ones that for e-commerce you should really think about. Then there was one term in there, versus. And this term is often used to either compare products or brands. Here's an example how to do it in a very safe way by Apple. Like they just wrote iPhone 12 with iPhone 13, iPhone 12 versus iPhone 13 Pro Max. So just they're comparing their own products. Probably there are differences and there are some products more fitting for a certain audience. So this makes total sense. You can also go a more aggressive way and compare your own brand to competitors, your own products to competitors. That doesn't fit every brand. You should really think about this. This can also have legal risks depending on how you do it, but it is a page type that ChatGPT is actively looking for with their fanout queries. So I wanted to make sure to mention it. And last I checked for a data set, I saw that in 13% of cases, ChatGPT was injecting brands into the fanout queries, even though no brands were mentioned in the original prompt. So clearly ChatGPT wants information about brands that fit the general prompt. Then last thing, of course, everything you can do in terms of Google Shopping optimization is also good for ChatGPT shopping. Yeah, all the words in the tech cloud are actually correct and can help you. But I don't want to go into too much detail on Google Shopping optimization. That's its own section. So what did we learn? Content formats must match. We should include the product attributes that ChatGPT is telling us in the product comparison table. We should look at the terms added in the fanout queries. And then search results for product reviews or brand reviews for our own products, our own brand, is something we should try to influence if we can do that. Any Google Shopping optimization we should do, and versus pages are a good thing to do. And then one last thing, this is now not about the shopping slider or shopping table, but about general recommendations from ChatGPT. You can even get a fake brand in there. Our customer Claneo did that a while ago. They invented a matcha powder called Matcha Teos Premium, named after one of the founders of Claneo. And they just published 3 listicles where about the best matcha powder. And Matcha Teos Premium was not even the #1 recommended one. It was just somewhere in the list. And now when you search, when you ask LLMs in Germany about matcha powder, it still happens regularly that Matcha Teos Premium is one of the recommended brands. This brand does not have a brand website. This brand does not have social media accounts. It was just 3 listicles. And now imagine what you could achieve if you actually were a matcha powder brand and were to do a little bit of listicle optimization. You could have a pretty big impact pretty soon. That's what it is from my side.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Malte. Super, super interesting. I think this example just shows again how early we are and what you can still do to massively, massively influence visibility. Very, very early stage. Super interesting. Thank you so much for sharing. And it just goes to show again that the brands moving quickly and our early adopters in this space can really win market share, and that reasonably quickly at that as well. But obviously you need a tracking tool for that, and you need to have the right data to make the right decisions. So that's why I'd like to introduce you all to Niklas, or head of product, who will now take about 15 minutes or so, go through the product, tell you exactly how we productize this within Peec AI, what are the visibility and the metrics that you should be looking out for, and then we will cover all of the good questions that already came in during the presentation.
Thank you so much, Leon, and thank you, Malte, for the presentation as well. It's actually pretty nice to see, because a lot of the things you guys will see that Malte just talked about are exactly what we're focusing on and showing primarily in the product. So let's dive right into that. So when you go into the product, first thing to note is that we are giving access to the AI shopping section of our product, all of our customers, independent of the plan, for at least the next 30 days, so that you can test it out, that we can get feedback, and that you can really see where it's the most useful for what kind of brands. Once you get into the product and you go to the shopping page, the first thing that you can do is upload your product catalog. You can also decide to not upload your own product catalog and just continue without it if you only want to see the products that are already appearing in the prompts that you're tracking. That's also the first important thing to note. You do not have to set up new prompts if you are already using Peec and are already focusing on e-commerce or shopping specific prompts, because we are using exactly those prompts that you generally see in Peec as the underlying data source for showing you metrics on a per product basis. So for this test project for ESN, which is a German supplement brand, I have already uploaded a test catalog and I've already gathered data for the last 30 days. So let's get right into it. The first thing that you can see is the products table, and we'll go through that, go metric by metric, explain a bit what it means, why it's relevant, and then we will dive into more details on a per product basis, as well as the overview in the end. Our first three metrics that are really the most relevant to look at on a per product basis is the visibility, win rate, and position. Visibility is the analog to the visibility that you also have on a brand basis. So here we show you the frequency per product with which it's showing up in the prompts that you're tracking. As Malte already mentioned, we're really focusing on ChatGPT right now with regards to shopping analytics. We internally are already testing AI mode as well as Rufus, because these are really the two other models where we can already see relevant kind of like shopping or e-commerce specific UI. So those will be released for the general public and Peec as well in the next weeks. So beyond visibility, we have the win rate, which is a new metric specific for shopping or product visibility, which is the frequency with which ChatGPT is recommending this specific product as the #1 option in a given chat. And then lastly, we have the position, the same as we have on the brand side. But what I would like to underline here is that the position per product is much, much more important than we see it for brand, because usually the position correlates very highly with the win rate, as ChatGPT usually puts the best recommendation at the first place in the interface that Malte also shared, as well as in the comparison table. Next, we have the price section. So on the first time, we extract the price of the catalogs, the products that you upload and their variants. And then very relevant to that, we have the mentioned price. This is the average price that an LLM assigns to your product. So here it's super insightful to actually compare, okay, does this price match what I myself offer my products at? Is it higher? Is it lower? And in the future, we also in the next weeks are going to add which merchants the LLM is actually linking people out to when recommending your product. Next, we also give you an understanding what the products and brands are that you're competing with for the given prompt set that you're tracking. Here we are first showing which are the brands that are appearing most regularly next to you for a specific product, and then we do that on a even more granular level on a per product basis, so that you can also see which exact products you're competing with for a given product. And also, as Malte said, fan-out queries and shopping fan-out queries are really one of the primary levers that you can use to optimize your visibility as well as your sentiment and general performance in AI shopping. So we also surface exactly those, the normal query fan-outs as well as the shopping query fan-outs per product. So what you're seeing here is the aggregated query fan-outs, again, shopping and normal query fan-outs for all of the prompts where your product gets mentioned at least once. And then lastly, going into that also a bit more detail in a second, are the attributes. The attributes are what Malte just showed in his presentation when ChatGPT compares your product against each other with the different stars or the different characteristics that it gives to your product. And we can go a bit more in depth in a second once we go into the product detail page that you can very easily reach by just clicking on a product, to then see much more details. So at the beginning, we give you an overview again of all of the metrics that we have on a per product basis, give you a historic overview of how your visibility as well your win rate has performed over the time horizon that you're looking at. Also important to note here, if you are already a Peec customer, what we're doing as soon as you upload your catalog, we are backfitting the data that you can see here for the last 30 days that you're already starting with historic data for your product AI visibility analytics. And then we're also showing you again in a bit more extended list what the products are that show up the most frequently next to your product, and give you the option to compare that in even more detail. So while this chart might look intimidating on first view, it actually gives you very, very important insights. What it does is comparing your position of your product to the average or median position and the range of position of your competitor products. So you can not only see where you are positioned on average, but also how the range of your position looks like. So is the performance or the recommendation position where the LLM is recommending you very volatile, that sometimes you're the best recommendation or sometimes you're also the last one? Is that very volatile, or do you actually have a very, very good median position and you always rank very, very high if you're mentioned? So this is exactly what you can see with this area, as well as the outliers at the end of the line and at the top of the line. And then these products are ordered after the visibility within the prompts that you're tracking. Then we next have a more detailed view about the shopping queries and the fan out queries. As Malte mentioned, this is really, really, really important to look at to get an understanding what you can also do on the Google Shopping side and then on the general kind of like actionability side to improve your visibility, looking at those, looking at the specific terms that I mentioned regularly for specific products or specific categories. And we do not only allow you to see that for the overall timeline, but you can also look at if there are changes. So are there new trending query fan outs that are appearing, or are they fairly stable, as is the case in this example project? Next, and really for me, the most exciting part about this new feature set are the attributes. What we're doing here is look at all of the attributes that you see in the comparison table in an LLM response, and we're clustering these into different kinds of attributes. On a high level, we are differentiating between characteristic, facts, and ratings. So let's go through them one by one. First, we have characteristics. These are distinct descriptions that the LLM is giving to the product that it's talking about. So a good example here is the protein type. We have whey isolate, clear whey isolate, clear isolate, and isolate. These are the descriptions for the protein type that the LLM is assigning to your brand. And you can also see in comparison to what the LLM is giving as a description to the competitor brands and the competitor products that I mentioned. Again, circling back to what Malte said, this is really important to look at and compare if this is matching first what your product really is, and then second, how you write about your content on your product, either on category pages or on the product detail pages. And you can really see, even for a medium number of prompts, so I'm only running 250 prompts for this project, you still get a lot of different characteristics that you can look at and analyze if your product is described as you want it to be described, and as is reflective of the reality of the product. The next types are facts. These are basically true or false statements that the LLMs are making about your product. So examples are dairy-free, low lactose, vegan, low sugar, etc., etc. And we again are showing you here the median response to, or the median description to these facts in a true or false statement that the LLM is giving for your product and the other products next to you, which is super insightful to check, okay, is this mirroring the actual reality of the product? And if not, you can analyze your website as well as all of your other content to see if you are actually making these factual statements or if you need to correct or change the way you talk about your product or your category. And lastly, we have the ratings. These are primarily the star comparisons that Malte showed as well, which we take and then aggregate on the most frequent comparison metrics, something like satiety or protein purity and digestion speed. And then we normalize those star rankings into a ranking from -4 to 4, so that you can see how you're comparing against your competition, where you may be the strongest, where you're the weakest, and where you have to adjust the communication about your product on product detail pages or the category pages. The last thing that you can see on the product details page are the prompts and chats. Here we break down your performance on a per product basis to the specific prompts where your product gets mentioned at least once or where we think your product should get mentioned, and then also make it very easy for you to look at specific chats and actually see, okay, where am I positioned first, third, even 10th, which is a good way to get a more tangible feeling of how you actually represent it and how it looks like when an LLM is talking about you. All of these information that I just showed you, and I know it's a lot of depth, we summarize for you in an easy to access screen on the overview page, where we show you your historic performance over the given time period, how you compare against the other brands that are appearing in shopping chats for ChatGPT. Also allow you to see that on a product basis, give you some handy ways to identify either your top products, but also your worst performing products when it comes to their visibility, their win rate, or their overall presence, but also which ones are gaining the most or losing the most, so that you understand, okay, where we are on a good track and where we are on a bad track. And then we also, again, just because it is so important for really being able to optimize your AI shopping visibility, we also show you the shopping queries as well as the normal fan out queries to really look at them and analyze them. You can look at them on the overall overview to get a feeling for your whole product catalog, but you can also drill down on a per category basis, which we are getting from the products that you upload. So in that instance, you could look at only the fan out queries that are being made by the LLM when it's talking about protein products. This is the overview of what we have so far. Obviously, all of the good stuff that you have in the Peec platform in general, like filtering for the topics that you've set up for your prompts, or filtering for tags so that you only look at branded or non-branded or specific intent-based prompts at a time, are also available within the shopping experience, so that you really can get to the data points that you want to see and that are the most relevant for you with just a couple of clicks.
Amazing. Niklas, thank you so much. Super interesting. Obviously, like a lot of hard work that's gotten into this, but I think a lot of very cool metrics that we can see, and a lot of good data we can capture here. One of the immediate questions that came up for the product is there a limit to the product catalog that one can send?
So there is not a limit right now. We have a theoretical limit of 2 million products. And to be very transparent, this is the first version of our product. So if you upload a catalog of maybe, let's say, 50,000 products upwards, there it might take some processing time, but there's not a limit to the amount of products that you can upload. Yeah.
Perfect. Sounds good. And then Malte, maybe a question for you, and this is likely a slightly tricky one. Because obviously ChatGPT right now, the top 4 rankings are exactly coinciding with Google Shopping. So the question was, do you think the correlation between the Google Shopping top 40 and ChatGPT product results is something that ultimately will persist, or is it mostly an MVP stage implementation by OpenAI?
I mean, as long as OpenAI is relying on Google Shopping, this will persist in some form, right? Of course, there has always been a rumor that OpenAI will build this themselves, and they once asked also online shop to send them their feeds, but most shops outside of the US have never heard back, I believe, from that form. And maybe at some point they build it themselves, but if you look at the fact that Walmart had pretty negative feedback about what ChatGPT has built so far, the fact that they removed some of the checkout functionality, I don't have the feeling it's their number one focus right now. So I would expect this to stay the same for a while. And then once they replace it, they are probably going to replace it with a similar system, right? The only difference is that they ingest the feeds immediately instead of doing that via Google. So any optimization you do now is probably going to last a long term and also going to impact that system.
Any optimization that you do right now is, they're likely for the long term. So it's important to start now to kind of like see what's possible. here also an offer from our side. We will now be presenting you with a booking link where you can immediately book in a time with the Peec AI team to talk about your specific use case. If you're already a Peec AI customer, this will automatically take you to the person you've been in touch with last from the team. If you are not a user yet, we'd be very, very happy to help you get set up with the product, make sure that your product catalog is updated, and then walk you through the features that Niklas showed, as well as ultimately the actionability that you can derive from the product, because ultimately the data is only a part of the puzzle, but you want to be making a lot of it. So would really encourage everyone to take this up and book a demo with the team. We'll move on to a few more questions that we have here. And so one of the questions that is from Stefan here is regarding the prices of the product. And maybe this for you to Niklas. So obviously the prices of the product are very dependent on the country. And how does this pick up between different countries that ultimately you might be looking into?
Yeah, I was just trying to get product for this, but I think for ESN, I do not have this in this project, but I can still answer it. So what we're doing is we show you the most common currency that is showing up in the chat. But then if you hover over the product, we also show you the average price across all mentioned currencies. So we take this fully into account. So even here you see that there's a difference between euro and dollar, because in this prompt example, I run all of the English prompt in Germany. So the prices are given in euro, even though the catalog that I uploaded was in dollar. So we do take into consideration only the currency for mentioned price that we see in the chats. And if there are multiple currencies given by the prompts that you're tracking, then we're also only showing you that currency. But I also saw already a question with regards to wanting to track this in multiple countries. You can easily do that within Peec. So you can just set up the prompts that you're running either as separate projects within Peec or even within the same project, but in different countries, and then use the country filter to only see the results that are relevant to a given country. And then you will also only see the currency that is mentioned in the chats that we run in that country, as well as the results and overall metrics that we see for the prompts for that country.
Yeah, perfect. So clearly follows the think global, act local approach, where you can then also edit your content based on exactly the country that you would like to target. Malte, maybe one more for you. For B2B companies that can't use Google Shopping for legal or compliance reasons, what can they do to improve visibility in AI shopping experiences like ChatGPT?
Yeah, I mean, there is unlikely to be a shopping slider then, since it can't be fed with data from Google Shopping. So all the traditional GEO advice is still applying, like look at the answer, look at fan out queries, look at sources. The product feed will not play a role in these cases.
And generally, would you still suggest to have Google Shopping and also to have that in order to optimize your AI visibility?
I mean, my understanding was this was about industries that are not allowed in Google Shopping. So no, then I don't recommend it.
Very good. Okay. Maybe a product question for Niklas about win rates. So is the win rate feature planned to be added to regular websites that do not necessarily have products, or not just on a product level?
Not planned. We could do it. I think for brands, it's a bit more difficult for us to figure out what the win is in a given chat. The way that LLM responses to shopping or product-related queries makes it more straightforward to define what is a win or what is the actual recommendation as the response to the query. For most brand-related queries, that is a bit more difficult and less deterministic to say yes or no. So there's more subjectivity and probability included. So we might do it. It's not planned as a roadmap item yet.
Perfect. And with regards to the product catalog, there is a question about how to connect the product catalog. So
yes.
Shopify, but what else is possible?
Yep.
How does that look like?
Yeah, so we have 3 main ways to do that right now. So you can either just put in your Shopify link, or you can upload a CSV right now. Here we're supporting the Google Merchant export as a CSV, or we have defined a format that is also working as an upload. We have already created a Claude skill with which you can really transform any CSV into the format that is required to be uploaded within Peec. Whoever is interested in that can just reach out to me or our customer support team. But we are also publicly making this available soon on our website, so that anybody with Claude or any other AI system can very easily transform any data structure into the CSV that is required for upload for Peec.
Mm-hmm. And there was a question about then using the data via MCP and API. Yeah. Will this be available too?
Yes, very, very soon. I don't want to promise anything, but most likely next week. We will have it in the customer API as well as the MCP. If anybody already has very specific use cases in mind, what they want to do with the API or the MCP specifically for AI shopping visibility, again, reach out to me, shoot me a DM on LinkedIn or via email, or to our customer support team. Right now, we're still shaping and building that part. So any input right now is most likely to shape how the API and MCP will look like for AI shopping.
Perfect. Malte, maybe one more slightly general one for you around one of your favorite topics, llms.txt. So what is your advice in terms of the llms.txt and the agents MD implementation? Have you noticed sites who have implemented these performing better in any way at all?
If your goal is visibility, so being found for generic questions, then the effect of these is 0 or close to 0. I mean, they are normal text documents that are on the internet and can, in theory, rank in Google, rank in Bing, can be used as sources for grounding. But if you look at the data, that very, very rarely happens. If you have in there information like, here you can find my MCP, or here you can find my public API and get a token for it, or other information that is relevant for vibe coders, for coding agents, for Claude, use it. Like, this is what these formats are used for, to inform agentic visitors to your website. But when it comes to manipulating or optimizing for a search experience, there they will have no effect.
Perfect. And Malte, there were a few questions about the fake matcha product example that you shared, which I think is obviously quite a controversial one, right? A few listicles, no website, no nothing. Can you walk us through like a little bit more about the methodology, if you know? Why is that even kind of like showing up with a few listicles? Would that then also rank, in Google Shopping? How does it pull into like ChatGPT? And do you have any, as a follow-up question, any recommendation about where to host these listicles to really have maximum impact?
Yeah, so can it show up in Google Shopping? No, because there is no product page for it. There is no product feed that contains this product. It's basically just a brand being recommended. And why does it work? Because if you look at a prompt like, what's the best matcha powder, you can find the fan out queries, and you can create listicles that specifically rank for these fan out queries. They are pulled into the grounding process, the web search. So the LLM uses these as context for generating the answer. So you just need to publish them on 3 websites that rank well in Google and Bing. And then you are very, very likely for such a niche topic to influence the grounding process. So it's the same mechanic as with any other listicle. And then in terms of where to host them, I mean, just look at, ideally for your own set of prompts, what are the top sources, and see if you can place a listicle there. And if not, just look in general in LLMs, what are websites that are regularly cited, and then host it there. But very important, this listicle thing right now is too easy and works too well. And whenever that happens in SEO, after a while, there will be a reaction from the platforms. And for AI overviews, there is already an indication that Google is skipping the self-promoting brand and just use the other recommendations to recommend the competitors. There will be research from Lily Ray coming out soon on that topic. And I do expect that now that more and more people are aware that this works very well, in the future, this will work less well, because it just takes one product manager or one data scientist at Google, OpenAI, to be aware and consider this a problem, and then it will be solved. I mean, if we at Peec AI can easily detect self-promotion listicles at scale, then OpenAI and Google can do that as well. So I would use it for the short-term benefit. I would not make this my key strategy of 2027. It's a tactic, it works, but it should not be your long-term bet for AI visibility.
Got it. Okay, so listicles, very important right now, work incredibly well, but probably not a long-term successful strategy. If I have a new online shop though, and maybe besides those listicles, what are the top optimization strategies that you would otherwise recommend to me, or as a starting place to increase both visibility but also sentiment in AI shopping? Maybe to Malte.
I mean, the main thing that I always request at the beginning is to describe yourself consistently online, that LLMs can because likely there's nothing in the model knowledge about you, right? You are not part of the training data if you're a new brand. So the first step is that when an LLM does a grounding query, like what is brand, there are at least 2 to 3 results coming back that roughly say the same. Because otherwise the answer might just be, I don't know this brand, I don't know what it is, which also makes it super unlikely that you get recommended anywhere. Once you have solved that, it really depends on your level of and your appetite for risk. So for
I think we have a small internet outage here on Malte's side. Niklas, for you too?
Yeah, I think so, but it was a good cliffhanger.
As I said, bet my quality on that. I hope I was not gone for a second.
You were gone for a second, but I think we got the gist of it, I suppose. Yeah. Amazing. Okay, then maybe Niklas, another product question for you. So there were a couple of questions about the product attributes, also about how many prompts should I even be tracking? What how do these attributes kind of work then? If you had to now set up a project from scratch, how would you approach this from a product perspective to also make sure that you have your product catalog covered, but that you have the brand attributes clean for each product, and that you have enough data and depth to really have statistical significance in that data?
Yeah, so as somebody already put it in the chat, it depends. I think it's very hard to give like a deterministic answer here, but I think the variables in comparison to the brand change a bit. So you can first say, hey, do I really want to track on a per product basis? So let's say I have a pretty small product catalog. I only need a pretty small amount of products that really matter for me. Let's say they are 10, and I really want to cover those 10. Well, then you can come up with a prompt set like around each of those 10 products, set them up as topics within Peec, then cover the intent that you want to cover, the personas as well, and the personas. Or you might think, hey, I have a very big product catalog. Let's say I have thousands or tens of thousands of products. So you want to do it on a per category basis. And then the kinds of prompts that you want to track change. But then the math can still be very similar, where you then look into the number of personas, intent stages that you want to track. And then with that, come up with the number of prompts that you want to track, either per category or per product. And then it depends on the other variables that you bring into play, such as persona as well as intent, if you only want to track branded prompts, also non-branded prompts. And then there are some other examples of kind of like more formulaic prompts that you might want to track, like comparisons between products or between brands to see how you show up there. Or you might want to track best of prompts specifically for products. That can be interesting as well. And then come up with that with a prompt set on a per category or per product basis. We also soon on that are going to decent updated version of our suggested prompts, which is called Prompt Builder, where we will do all of these things for you. So you will just have to tell us basically what you want, and then we will come up with a prompt set for you and help it set it up. And in addition to that, we will also soon have a chat interface within Peec, already as early as most likely end of this week, for our early access customers, where we are also within that chat interface and within that AI experience help you to answer exactly these questions based on what we see within the product. So based on your catalog, your existing prompts and topics and brand profile. So no specific answer. It just depends a bit on the setup of the brand. So I don't want to just say, hey, you have to track 500 prompts, because it could be that you only have to track 200, but it could also be that you should track 2,000, depending on what your goal is and your catalog.
Yeah, and I think the important thing to add there is it's really all about making sure that you have clusters that you can dig into for the data, right? So there was another question here about like the different consumer profiles. So setting these prompts up into clusters, into sales funnel stages, into different personas, into different countries will then allow you to say, hey, for this budget conscious persona that I'm targeting for the middle of the funnel in the UK, exactly what can I do? What products am I competing against? Versus maybe a different, buying persona I have in a different country for maybe a slightly different product. So you have, what Niklas is showing there right now, the global filter bar that is not just relevant for the commerce product, but goes through the entire Peec AI data, where we already help you by putting in branding and intent prompts, right? So informational, commercial, transactional prompts, we auto-categorize those, as well as branded and unbranded prompts. There was a question earlier there about like, hey, if I include the brand name, won't that skew the data? Absolutely, it will. So if you track, unbranded prompts, then you can filter out the branded data to make sure that you're not looking at skewed data. And then you can always also, play with the and the or filter, as well as use tags and topics as a combination to really dig into every single data point and every single cluster. Perfect. Then there was a question that is more on the technical side, maybe towards Malte. So how important is it to make my website easy to be crawled by AI, like markdown endpoints, for example? So anything any advice that you would have from the technical side of things?
Yeah, I think markdown endpoints are like at the end of the optimization, the absolute basics. So not blocking the crawlers from LLMs with my bot detection, my CDN, in my robots.txt, serving HTML content where the main content is in the first DOM that I'm serving to the user without JavaScript. That is table stakes, super, super important. Unless that is done, you don't even need to think about publishing content. Then most websites probably gain more benefit from optimizing their content or creating more content versus serving markdown files. If you give markdown files as an option, it's very unlikely that any LLM even cares. If you automatically switch to markdown files and serve them under the same URL based on the user agent, that is probably slightly beneficial. Like logically it should be, because you require fewer tokens to understand your content. They are less likely to be distracted by your navigation, which can count into the first set of tokens that are evaluated for a document. So in theory, it should have a lot of benefits. I have not seen any data to prove that it really has a benefit. And I think most brands have other levers to pull way before they think about simplifying their HTML for agents. But a very large website that is getting crawled a lot could think about that, yes. Just to serve LLM crawlers faster, save money. But you need to be really sure that you know what you're doing, that you don't accidentally do cloaking. And you also need to take into account, if your website breaks, you will immediately see this because your users complain or your own employees complain. If you serve a different version to bots and that breaks, there's a huge risk that it takes weeks. And I actually know some of these stories from when people used to do this for SEO, that this special version that you serve to bots breaks and nobody noticed it for weeks or even months. And you would think, hey, it's a markdown file, what can break? But maybe the first 5,000 characters are gibberish because whatever service you use to turn your website into a markdown file tries to write an essay about Shakespeare or puts in some weird JavaScript. So if you do this, make sure you have really, really good quality assurance in place.
Amazing. That's very, very good advice. We also have a question here about like a specific use case. Maybe we will include the booking link here again to the team. I think specifically, if you would like to go through your own product catalog, speak to either your dedicated customer account or success manager, or speak to like somebody on the team that can like specifically go through this for you guys. We would be more than happy to do so. This is incredibly interesting for us, and it's obviously changing all the time. Niklas,
one note on the meeting, the booking link. I really recommend going into this, even if you just want to give feedback or if you think like something is not working perfectly well for you. I will also join a bunch of those calls and meetings. So really, like whatever feedback you have right now or you need help with, just book the call and we will make it work for you guys.
Yeah, perfect. Maybe Niklas, one last question to you. So there was a question, I think, where there was a bit of confusion about like organic and kind of like paid ChatGPT, but I think leads maybe quite well to also one of the newest features that we shipped around ads. So maybe we can very, very quickly show that as one of the many things that I think we've shipped recently, and then slowly wrap it up.
Yes, for sure. Let me quickly switch into a different project that actually has ads. So to answer the first question, because that one is quite quick, we do not build this for paid ads in ChatGPT right now, but we're focusing on the organic GPT shopping experience. What Leon is referring to, we have a new chats table, and in this chat table, you can quickly open all of the chats that you see running for the project that you're currently on with Peec, and you can then filter for only seeing exactly the ones that actually have ads. This is super useful if you just want to get a feeling first for actually how many of the chats that are being triggered by the prompts that I'm tracking are showing ads, and also who's running the ads on the prompts that I'm tracking. So for instance, here we see with linear, a couple of even content pages are running ads, what we've seen in the past. And then on the prompts level, you are also able to see this actually on a per prompt basis or per topic basis. If you just activate the ads, which I didn't have in advance, but we can quickly pull it up here, and we can see the ads and then actually see, okay, which is the prompt that triggers the ads the most frequently. Then also remembering to only look at the data for ChatGPT, because it is really the only one where we are tracking ads right now. And we see some pretty interesting numbers. So for this prompt, the ads trigger frequency, let's say, is 20%. So really, if a customer would be asking exactly this query or a similar query, the likelihood that they're seeing ads is pretty high. We are improving this whole feature set around ads a lot in the next week, so giving you a better idea of who is really running ads on the prompts that you're tracking and give you an overview for that. We are already experimenting with that in the chat interface that I have kind of like teasered already. So this is still in internal testing right now. But one interesting example of a skill that the system also has is just asking it, hey, what are actually the ads that are running, what are the companies that are running ads in my prompts? And it very quickly gives you an overview of the actual companies that are running ads, the number of prompts where they are showing up, the topics within which that is, as well as the URL and some of the specific creators that they're using within these ads. So a lot of very interesting data points to look into. And we're planning to expand this much more in the product.
Amazing. A lot of very, very interesting data points indeed, as the LLMs as a channel, only increase as the trust increases. More and more of the ad spend will shift there. More and more of the consumers and the shoppers will shift there. So I would say, with that in mind, this has been a long time coming for us. A really, really big focus that we also want to make going forward. Like I mentioned, do book a demo with us, connect with us on LinkedIn, do send us an email otherwise as well. But we hope this was interesting and useful. Any feedback that you guys have on kind of like this content format for us, here and generally for the product as well, please do share it. We always want to learn, and ultimately the best way is by listening to everyone that's supporting us on this journey. So I think with that, we'll wrap it up. Thank you so much, everyone, for taking the time and attending. And we will send through a follow-up message, including a recording of this webinar too. Thank you, everyone, and see you in the next one.
Thanks, everyone. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.